All right, Jeff, we're wearing matching khaki shorts,
Right.
matching khaki button-down shirts,
Uh-huh.
and matching tan-colored pith helmets.
We are, and I think we look damn good, don't you?
We do, yeah. But why are we dressed like this in late December in central Vermont? I'm freezing.
Ray, we've come to Middlebury, Vermont in search of the burial site of an ancient Egyptian mummy. Hello, I'm Jeff Belanger.
And I'm Ray Auger, and welcome to episode 71 of the New England Legends podcast. If you give us about 10 minutes, we'll give you something strange to talk about today. We're on a mission to chronicle every legend in New England, 1 week and one story at a time.
That we are, and we couldn't do it without the help of our Patreon patrons. For as little as $3 per month, you can help us with our server and promotion costs and the rising costs of production. After more than 70 episodes, our expenses are climbing. If you love these legends as much as we do, consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/New England Legends. Our patrons also get bonus content like sample episodes of the new companion podcast we're working on, so go check it out.
All right, Jeff, this week I have some concerns.
Okay, how so, Ray?
Well, we're looking for the burial site of an ancient Egyptian mummy, right?
Right, and not just any mummy. This mummy was a prince.
Yeah, but we're in Middlebury, Vermont.
Exactly.
Aren't we more than 5,000 miles from Egypt?
5,595 miles from Egypt, if you really want to know.
Okay, but why are we looking in central Vermont?
Well, that story begins almost 4,000 years ago. The year is 1881.
That's not so long ago.
1881 BC.
Ah, okay.
Prince Senraset III and his wife, Hathenhotep, just gave birth to a baby boy.
Mazel tov.
The baby boy's name is Amun-Her-Khepesh-Ef.
I dare you to say that again.
I don't think I could.
So Amun-Her-Khepesh-Ef doesn't live for very long. In 1883 BC, the young child dies.
Oh.
Yeah, he's only 2.5 years old, too. And being Egyptian royalty, he's going to have a burial befitting a prince.
Okay.
He'll be mummified, wrapped in fine linens, and buried near his father's future temple.
6 years later, in 1878 BC, because remember, we count down with BC dates, Senraset III takes over as the pharaoh of Egypt. And this guy did some big things for his country. He cleared a canal through the first cataract of the Nile River. He waged various battles against Nubia while trying to expand the empire, and had many artistic works commissioned, mostly with his likeness. His is one of the most recognizable faces in all of Egypt, and their statues and art because so much of it survived. And given he had other children and other wives, the young prince Amun-Her-Khepesh-Ef is mostly forgotten about for thousands of years.
All right, if we fast forward to the 1800s AD,
Okay.
we find this is a great period of discovery in Egypt. Egyptmania is taking over Europe and the Americas. The world is captivated by this ancient culture and the artifacts that are beginning to pour out all over the country. Mummy after mummy is leaving the ground and making their way into museums, traveling sideshows, and even private collections.
Okay.
There was a time when it was en vogue for the wealthy to own an actual mummy from Egypt.
I can see that. Yes, of course, Butterworth, that Rolls Royce of yours is a fine automobile, but have you seen this old wrapped corpse in my parlor?
Oh, when you put it that way, it does sound kind of strange.
So one of the mummies that left Egypt is that of Prince Amun-Her-Khepesh-Ef, whose small body is getting bought and sold like an old piece of furniture. Eventually, his mummy makes its way to Paris and then on to the United States.
All right, so there's this guy in Vermont named Henry Sheldon who wanted a mummy very badly for his Museum of Vermont History.
Which makes sense because if anything says Vermont history, it's Egyptian mummies, right?
That's right.
Sheldon has been described as, quote, a Yankee who never threw anything away.
Basically, he's a hoarder.
I guess it's pretty much a fine line between hoarder and collector. I mean, razor thin, right?
So Sheldon catches wind from a New York antiques dealer that one has become available. So Sheldon buys it sight unseen in 1886 for $20.
Okay.
That's over $500 in today's dollars.
All right.
But when the child mummy arrives in Vermont, Sheldon's disappointed. Because of the damage, Sheldon receives $10 back.
Part of the reason mummies are so well preserved in Egypt is because of the dry desert air. I remember learning in school that water is the universal solvent. If you give water enough time, it eats through everything. So take the mummies out of the desert, and now they're in climates they've never been in before. They erode and they break down. So when Henry Sheldon looks at his new mummy, he judges it unfit for display in his museum, and he simply stores the thing in his attic and forgets all about it.
After Sheldon died in 1907, the child mummy was forgotten about for years, all the way until 1945, when a museum employee named Florence Allen discovered the mummy in the attic.
That's like the second discovery of Prince Amun-Her-Khepesh-Ef.
That it is. Florence Allen shows the find to curator George Meade, but the discovery doesn't sit quite well.
I get that. I mean, you basically have the remains of a human being in storage for no good reason.
Right. So George Meade explains to the museum's board of directors that this was once a human being who deserves a proper Christian burial.
Even though Prince Amun-Her-Khepesh-Ef was born almost 2 millennia before Christ?
I don't think that was lost on Meade. Meade had the young prince's mummy cremated and then buried.
Which brings us back to present day in the town of Middlebury, Vermont. It turns out the museum is still around, except now it's called the Henry Sheldon Museum of Vermont History, and it's located right here in town on Park Street.
All right, should we head over there?
We could, but that won't get us any closer to finding our mummy.
All right, so where should we go?
So after doing a little newspaper archive research, I learned that the former curator, George Meade, had the mummy's remains buried in his family plot at West Cemetery here in town.
All right, let's head over there. All right, this cemetery is huge, and it looks a lot like countless other big cemeteries we've seen throughout New England.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, there must be thousands of graves here. All right, how are we going to find Prince Amun-Her-Khepesh-Ef? Tell me we're looking for a pyramid or something like that.
No, we're not looking for a pyramid, but I must confess we don't have much to go on except that it's in the Meade family plot, so we're basically searching for a bunch of Meade graves.
All right, I got some Smiths over here.
Yeah, I see some Bufords over there.
All right, wait, here's a few Meades right there.
Okay, yeah, I think this is the area. We just need to find the plot of Prince Amun-Her-Khepesh-Ef.
All right, this isn't as obvious as I thought it would be.
I get it. Hey, wait, right here. I think this is it, Ray.
Ooh, I would have walked right past that. It looks like almost every other headstone around here.
It does.
All right, so it's a dark stone, a traditional headstone shape. It even has a small cross at the top.
I know, but that's where the similarities end. Look right here below and to the left of the cross. That's the Egyptian Ankh, which is like a cross with a little loop at the top.
Right.
And on the other side is the outline of a bird, which is the Egyptian hieroglyph that represents the soul.
All right, the epitaph reads, Ashes of Amun-Her-Khepesh-Ef, aged 2 years, son of Senusret III, king of Egypt, and his wife Hathon-hotep, 1883 BC. So there really is an Egyptian mummy buried right here in central Vermont.
And we just found him, minus the curse and buried treasure.
Standing here in front of this grave, you'd never know it's here in this sea of headstones.
But this still feels a little weird to me.
All right, how so?
We're gawking at the dead. Amun-Her-Khepesh-Ef was a child, a human being, someone's kid. He received a proper burial per his society and time, and then his grave was desecrated. He was pulled from his tomb and bought and sold like an antique souvenir.
I see your point.
I feel like the only person in the story with any sort of couth was George Meade, who realized this isn't some piece of art or property. These are human remains that should have never been disturbed in the first place. And lacking the resources to return him to Egypt, he did the next best thing and gave the young prince a proper burial in Vermont. It's no wonder people who desecrate graves of mummies or anyone else really feel they're cursed. Doing something that wrong really should eat you up inside.
Rest in peace, Amun-Her-Khepesh-Ef. You know, Jeff, I still feel underdressed for winter.
I love how New England is not only full of our own weirdness, but how our legends intersect with countless others throughout the world.
Well, that's what we do each week, right? We find those stories and those connections. If you'd like to see a photo of Amun-Her-Khepesh-Ef's headstone in Middlebury, Vermont, go on over to our website at OurNewEnglandLegends.com and click on episode 71.
And if you don't already subscribe to our podcast, do it. It's free. It only takes a second right through your smartphone. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts.
And we'd like to apologize to our Egyptian friends and neighbors for the mispronunciations that we may have made. We try our best.
We do.
And for the record, we said Amun-Her-Khepesh-Ef's name 13 times in the podcast. Go ahead and count for yourself.
Just be thankful we didn't try to pronounce those names with like a full-on Boston Southie accent, right?
Amen to that. But it would have been a wicked pissa.
Yeah, kid.
Our theme music and even those funky Egyptian stingers we used this week are by John Judd.
Until next time, remember, the bizarre is closer than you think.